although prediction is something that I've spent a lot of time doing, I actually think we're at the situation where prediction is of no value. Prediction is actually counterproductive, because I think actually now, if you're an individual, if you any degree of free thinking, any degree of making up your own mind about life, if you value that in any way, shape, or form, then actually I think you have to fight now.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you for joining me, Richard Abbott. Richard is an author, writer, speaker, and a mystic. And I've invited him here today to talk to us about the end of the world. So Richard is, I consider him an authority on this particular topic. I've heard him speaking about it quite a bit. So I would like him to share with us what his perception is of I suppose what the Christians are calling the apocalypse, the end times. But I feel that you have a slightly different spin on that, and as well as the looming difficulties, what hope can be found?
Okay, well, nice to see you, David. And well, yes, what shall we say? Look, now there's a million things we could say about individual examples of this idea of the end of the world. We could talk for hours about it. But to me, that's kind of obvious. I mean, it's obvious that things are not going to be like they were. I mean, and anybody really who thinks that they are, I don't really know what to say to them. It seems to be such an absurd concept that things are going to go back to how they were, or that things are going to anyway somehow improve. I mean, this is insanity to believe that. So I'm taking it as read that people are on board with the fact that clearly we've gone in a wrong direction here.
And perhaps this is a point for later, but how they were before what? When?
Well, I mean, the trigger is clearly coronavirus, but the gun was loaded a long while before that. The gun was loaded a long while before that, and you could put it down to, so we could be conspiracy minded about it. We could say, oh well, this, everything that's happening is a deliberate plan that's been set up and it's been in motion for years and years and years. You can take that view, or you could not take that view, and you can say, well, it's a series of unfortunate circumstances and accidents and missteps and errors by our leaders in society. I'm not sure it matters so much which view you take, because it affects the same thing. It affects the same thing, which is that in 2021 is unrecognizable to 2001. If anybody had time traveled forward from 2001 and seen what we are dealing with now, they wouldn't believe it. And if they tried to tell people, the people wouldn't believe it. Indeed, that may have happened. But it's so Rona is the Rona is the trigger, it's the catalyst for this. But it's been in process for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I mean, so rather than taking individual circumstances and saying, well, there's this going on, and this is a signal that things have gone bad, and there's this, we could be here forever. Let me try and put it in a nutshell like this. This is how I see it. It's like the fundamental laws that, and I mean like cosmic laws, I don't mean judicial, governmental laws. It's like the fundamental laws that govern our world have changed. So imagine this completely crazy scenario. Okay, in our world, we accept that. So I'm going to think about numbers. We accept that 2 times 3 is 6. Yeah, 2 multiplied by 3 is 6, and we also accept that 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. Right, so it doesn't matter what way round you multiply your numbers together, you get the same answer. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. Easy, simple. We accept that as just like a concrete law of our reality, and it is indeed a concrete law of reality. But the situation we're in now is as if, it's not actually this, but it's akin to the idea that 2 times 3 is still 6, but 3 times 2 is not 6. And that is such like, what is that? That's so fundamental. That's so fundamental to the way that we construct our lives and construct our world. It is at the very foundations of everything. If 2 times 3 is not the same as 3 times 2, we are in a different world. And although that is literally not true, you know, that's not how it is. That is the best analogy that I can think of.
Yeah. So are you speaking about the spin, the stories that are being told by whatever sources? We're seeing these stories where we're seeing one truth here and then the absolute opposite truth being peddled on another platform. Is that what you're talking to?
Yeah, but it's not just the fact that it's peddled, it's the fact that it's adopted.
Right.
So we live in a situation now where, and some may say, well, it's always been like this. Maybe it has, but it's now clear. It's now out in the open. We live in a situation now where, I mean, take America, for example, but you know, there are many other examples. I mean, that is not the United States of America. That is 2 countries. That is 2 countries, and they just so happen to have land borders with each other. But you've got 2 groups of people who are operating in a completely different reality from each other. They're not just disagreeing about things, they're operating in a completely different reality. Utterly, fundamentally, at its core, they see black, they see white, they see red, they see blue, and to me, I don't see how that gets bridged. I don't think it even can be bridged, because I think the bridge got blown up a little while ago.
Yeah. Could you give one really simple example of where you're seeing that polarity?
Well, I mean, vaccination is the prime, is the thing du jour, isn't it? It's not just that. I mean, this isn't everybody, obviously, and this is being peddled by certain people. But plenty of people are adopting the view that if you don't get vaccinated, you know, those who don't get vaccinated are not just wrong, they're bad. And actually, they're not just bad.
Pariahs.
They're scum.
Yeah.
That's what some in the hardcore pro-vaccine movement now think. And of course, that engenders the opposite reaction. And it engenders the opposite reaction where a lot of people who are very much against the vaccine really consider now the people that are pushing it to be just beyond the pale and evil. Now, I'm not speaking to the rights and wrongs of this. I'm just observing. I'm trying to observe from above.
Certainly.
That you've got that complete rift, complete separation of points of view. There isn't any middle ground in that at all. There's not 1 centimeter of middle ground.
But there's a third group, is there not? Correct me if I'm wrong. That are the live and let live types who, you know, if you want to get vaccinated, fine. You don't, fine. Up to you. Where do they fit in this?
Oh, they're there, and it may be that they are the majority. It may be that they're the majority, but you'll not know it because the debate is being run by the extremes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right.
The debate has been run. The debate about lots of things has been run by the people at the extremes for quite some years now. In lots of topics.
Going back how far would you say?
Well, I mean, I think the trigger for that was 9/11.
People became more fearful, more protectionist. Yeah.
Well, fearful, more fundamentalist I mean, it was a fundamentalist act, whatever the particular view you take, it was a fundamentalist act to begin with. The response was fundamentalist, and it's rolled on from there. I mean, 9/11 is, whatever you think about it, I mean, it was a historical moment. And I remember saying at the time, we'll not ever get past this. This is like, it's stamped on, you know, our consciences, on our consciousness.
Indeed. And I suppose we've been littered with significant events like that. I mean, not One of them, probably the most significant as far as I'm concerned, World War I and II. Recently finding out that the first 2 years of World War I were entirely soldiered or mostly soldiered by volunteers, the people who felt, their conscience screamed at them that they were fighting for the survival of civilization, which it turns out they perhaps were. But they essentially lost that war by giving themselves to it. And we lost all of the greatest of us, the brave and the creative, the real forerunners of our society. And we haven't really recovered from that either, it seems. So would you say we've been on this pretty dramatic decline for hundreds of years now?
Yes, I do. I mean, Peter Hitchens is interesting. I wouldn't say I agree with everything he says, but he's interesting, and he identifies World War I as being the time. He wouldn't take as esoteric point of view to it as I would, but I can agree with that.
Yeah.
The game of identifying where it went wrong, as if we could go back in time and like stop that happening, and then everything would be all right.
Kill Hitler, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, and then everything would be fine. I don't think you can do it, because you're always in a cause and effect situation. So definitely World War I was a point of decline. There's no doubt about it, from which we have not recovered. But World War I didn't occur in a vacuum. World War I was a result of, arguably, it was a result of a lot of imperial complacency in Britain. Britain was the world leader at that time. Imperial complacency, and then fear as to when they realised that they'd been complacent.
Okay.
And then why did that come about? Well, you go back through time. So
yeah. So it's just a fool's game, really, getting into all of that. Perhaps
it can be interesting, but I'm not sure that you ever get to the point.
No. And the point is that we're in a decline. But what exactly does that? Well, first of all, we're talking Britain. We've talked about the US, but is this global? Are we talking about a decline for the species here, or what is it?
I think it's the West.
The West, particularly,
yeah. I think it's the decline of the West.
Yeah.
So what's the West? It is Christian rooted, even if it's not Christian worshipping. It's Christian based, right or wrong. It's Christian based, Judeo-Christian based.
Yeah.
It's some form of democracy, some form of open society, and this varies from different parts of the West. It includes Australia, includes New Zealand, Canada, America, most of Europe, Britain. It's that which is rotting from within. And that leaves a gap for, broadly, the East. These are very general terms, I know.
Yes, yeah.
To be in the ascendancy, which of course it is. Clear to see.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different value system, completely different structure. It's largely unreligious, largely unspiritual, not completely, but largely unspiritual.
Yep. Very mental, excessively mental, without the other tools that we have available to us. Is that a fair summary? Quite
mental, also quite controlling. It's quite and yes, we're generalizing, but the principle was always that, you take America, for example, there would always be a government. Government would have to do things and tell you what to do to some extent, but it was always from the beginning that the government didn't tell you, and you decided for yourself. And sometimes the government had to come in, yes, but it was from the basis that you decided for yourself. Yeah. The Chinese system is the opposite of that. The Chinese system is that the government is supreme, and maybe individual citizens, you'll get a few rights here and there, but it'll be the government that decides it. Yeah. So it's an inversion.
Yeah.
So it's that individual first, collective important, but afterwards it's that which is under threat. Well, it's that which is rotting and has rotted from within, really. Yeah. It's that which is breaking down.
Yeah.
So ordinary life, I think ordinary life, if you want to lead an ordinary life, will largely continue, but it will continue under a completely different mindset and regime, belief system, which will not be conducive to any kind of happiness or growth. But there'll be all sorts of medications that will enable you to not worry about happiness or growth.
Medications, pharmaceuticals, but also media bases that we
Yeah, that's the medication. The latest match game drama, bitch fight on the internet, you know, bread and circuses kind of thing. I don't think we're going to this. I think we're already in this. It's already here.
Do you suspect that it would become more dangerous to be a free-thinking individual, just to be able to share an opinion?
This is already the case.
Yeah,
we are already there. We're already there. This has already happened. We are in a situation where the collective, the group, the society is now has been prioritized over the individual conscience. And I'm not saying that will be 100% bad, because there will be interesting new positive things that come from it. But the transition will be messy, and the full transition to that state will be messy. Maybe there will be a fight back by people who value individuality and value personal choice and freedom. We would hope there would be, but I'm not. I don't think I'm very hopeful that it would be successful.
Well, even if there is a fight back, is there any point? Is it not just totally against the tide?
Well, so one of the tides, just to introduce another concept, one of the tides is that we have, particularly in the West, let's just think of the West for a minute. A big root of the problem, and a big visible symptom of what's going on, is what I would call extreme levels of emotionalism. Extreme levels of emotionalism. Now, so coming from a spiritual New Age type background, which I'm not in anymore, but which I was kind of introduced to in my teens and 20s. Yeah. It was always shown to me, and I think correctly, that it is important to have some connection to your feelings. Let's say it the other way around. It's not a good idea to be an emotionless drone. Right? That's not a good idea. So life is richer for men and women, for everybody, when there is some ability to feel emotion and to express that emotion. So I'm 100% on board with the need to do that.
Yeah,
it's vital for a healthy life.
Yeah,
but we have gone way beyond that. We are living in a time where there is extreme emotionalism now. We are living in a time where we have almost abandoned any critical thinking or rational analysis of stuff. And it's just, this is how I feel, and this is what I want because it's how I feel. And not all of us live like that, but it is the dominant theme in our society.
Yeah.
I think. So the ability to argue points, discuss points, analyze proposals has gone out the window, because the response is simply, but I don't like what you're saying. You're offending me. I feel threatened by your words. And this isn't just a few people. This is the dominant thing of society. Feelings. I encourage people to observe this. Feelings rule now. Yeah. Feelings rule a lot of things, and that is not good. It's no better than the mind ruling everything. We've got to have a balance. So to me, the hope, the way out of this, is that we have to begin to balance out the mind and the heart. We are out of balance. We were out of balance. It was all mind. Now it's all heart. That's no good. That is the ruin. That will be the ruin of our civilization if it is all heart. Because in the heart, it is not just happiness and joy and love and flowers. There are demons and monsters in the heart. There is no doubt about it. So we've got to balance that with the mind.
Yeah.
This is the hope. This is the way out of the problem.
This is the hope. And knowing you and your teaching somewhat, there's a point that you would advocate beyond heart and mind as well. There could even be a brighter light, right?
Oh, without a doubt, there is a point beyond the heart and the mind. We're getting into a much more spiritually esoteric thing there, and you're into connection with things like the soul. But the problem is, that is what we want to do, go beyond the mind and the heart towards the soul. But the heart, the feelings, are tricky. We haven't come to terms with. A lot of people believe that they are operating from a higher soul perspective, whereas actually all they're doing is they are emoting. Or we haven't tackled this. We haven't got to grips with this in society. Individually, I try to encourage people to get to grips with it. That's part of my approach, part of my teaching. But it is not easy because the emotions are like water, and they come in waves, and they overwhelm people. And we've always had this challenge, but in our society now, we are encouraged to emote. Those who emote are promoted and are pushed forward in society. It doesn't matter what they're emoting about. It's just, they're the ones. And people who want to think rationally or critically and balance that out, they are disregarded and pushed to one side. Yeah.
Considered to be cold, heartless.
Considered to be cold or heartless, considered to be extreme in some way. But we're going to have to come to the balance.
Would you say that it would be, and maybe some more than others, but it would be a useful skill set to develop the ability to be more empathetic, compassionate in conversation, in the way that you present yourself, as a way to navigate this changing terrain?
Yes, we do, but we need to we need to find a balance. So we can't go from one extreme to the other, or back to any previous extreme. But it's about becoming aware of the fact that just because we want something, it doesn't mean that we should have it.
Yeah.
And that is a fundamental point, because that is not how most of us conduct our lives. Because it's not how society tells us that we can conduct our lives. So everything about society says to us, you want it, you can have it.
You deserve it.
You deserve it. You should have it. And if you can't get it, you want it, but you can't get it, well, that must be because you're being oppressed in some way. You must be being held down in some way by a nefarious other, because you want it, you should have it, but they're stopping you from getting it. And if you could plug any political, social, moral discussion in our society into that thing that I've just said, that it all roots back to that. People believe that I want it, I can have it, and if I can't have it, it's because some scumbag out there is trying to stop me getting it. And that is, we can see, that is toxic. That is absolutely toxic to our civilization. It's destroying it from the inside. Because the truth of the matter is that just because you want something, it doesn't mean that you should have it. It does not mean that you should have it. Some people say, well, so who are you to say? Well, I'm not. It's about us saying to ourselves. It's about us realizing that so it's about me as an individual saying, I would love to have ABC, but actually I know that ABC is no good for me. How do I know that ABC is no good for me? Because I work it out through introspection and thinking and reflecting and meditating and taking time, checking our emotions and analyzing our emotions. Then we've got a better chance. It's not the only solution, but we've got a better chance then of being able to navigate our way through this.
As a collective, is that the point, or individuals trying to sense make and find some stability in their own lives in this milieu?
It will only be individuals and maybe families and maybe small groups. The collective, this is an extreme point, but so I'm half joking, but I'm not really half joking. The word collective should be just expunged from the dictionary. It means nothing. No. It means nothing, because what it means is people in power getting what they want. That's what they mean by collective. We're looking out for the collective. We're looking out for society. No, you're not. You're looking out for what you want, and you're making everybody else do what you want. It's a nonsense word. It doesn't have any meaning in our world, in our society. Although lots of people want to put it as the reason for things.
You could argue that society doesn't actually exist. I think that argument's been made quite a lot, hasn't it? We are just individuals. That's all we are. And we've decided to agree on a few things and just get along as best we can on a few points, right?
A lot of people in the UK don't like that idea because if they're of a certain age, they will remember the last person who said that, which was Margaret Thatcher, and they might not like that. So she said there's no such thing as society, and a lot of people took a lot of umbrage about that. They didn't like it, and that actually lives on. That resistance to Thatcher lives on in a lot of what happens in our society in Britain, anyway. There is the family, there is the marketplace, and I don't just mean capitalistic economy. I mean the human marketplace of ideas. There are groups that come together. There are organizations. There are societies. There are all sorts of collections of people, which we might call society. But it's where is the priority? If the priority is on society, let's protect society. Well, what does that mean? How are you protecting society if individuals within that society are suffering as a result of what you're doing?
Yeah.
So, the whole response to coronavirus is a social society collective response, and it's insanity. It's absolute insanity.
So we're facing a future here, the immediate future of one group of people who believe in this idea of society and that we are all part of some collective blob, more or less. We all believe and think the same way, and that's how it should be. And the people who say, well, actually, no, I'm an individual, and we can agree or disagree, and that's fine. But we all need to have our own route through life, our own path, or be self-determining. So for those people, the second group there, what does life look like in the next 50 years?
Although prediction is something that I've spent a lot of time doing, I actually think we're at the situation where prediction is of no value. Prediction is actually counterproductive, because I think actually now, if you're an individual, if you any degree of free thinking, any degree of making up your own mind about life, if you value that in any way, shape, or form, then actually I think you have to fight now. And maybe you'll win and maybe you won't, but I think we are way beyond any level of prediction or this is going to happen, this is going to happen. You've got to fight, because we are having our ability to decide our lives for ourselves, which was never absolute, and I accept it was never absolute, but we are having our ability to do that stripped away from us. And it's being stripped away from us under the guise of safety.
Yeah.
And that's a complete inversion of everything that we have lived with for centuries. And a lot of people will call it progress. I think it's a collapse, and it's a rot. It's a rot from within, because it won't even deliver on its own terms. It won't make people happy. That's the joke of it. If you prioritize the safety of society and you marginalize destroy individual choice as a result of it, individual options, the society that you will create will be safe, but it will be broken, it will be unhappy, it will be miserable, it will be lost.
There'll be a lack of life.
There will be a lack of life. Yeah, there'll be a lack of life. There'll be human beings surviving until X age, XYZ age in their life, but there will be no life, there will be no vigor. So it's about fighting. But how do you fight? Well, this is where this introspection is required. People have got to work out, everybody individual has got to work out what it is that matters to them. What do they want to do? What do they feel called towards? And the emotion balance factor is important. So we might get very riled up, we might get very angry about what is happening in our country, in our society, in our world. But we've also got to check that and say, okay, well, I've got to get smart about this. I'm not just got to be screaming. I've got to be getting smart and saying, okay, well, what can I do in this? What can I? How far am I prepared to go? What are my priorities? What are my skills? And from that, then you've got a chance of things being different.
Mhm. Yeah.
But either way, we're in, whichever way it ultimately goes, there will be a lot of fundamental changes to our society.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the core.
Mm.
You know, to me, it's like the buildings will still stand, but everybody in the buildings will be different, and the pathway around the buildings will be different. So the buildings are still there, but everything that happens inside the buildings is different. Now, of course, it may go beyond even that, and even the buildings may fall. But let's save that for another day, maybe.
Yeah, indeed. So perilous times ahead. There is hope in the individual seeking their own answers and then finding out where the best place to contribute. And
it's like a sauna. Having a sauna, a very hot Turkish bath or sauna, and it's sweating out all the impurities, and it's uncomfortable, and it's struggling to breathe. And how much long could we be in here? But when we step out of it, eventually, when we step out of it, if we can rid ourselves of all these toxins, then actually life could be much better. But we're in the sauna, and that's the heat that a lot of us are feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
But there is, my message is that there is hope, but it begins at the individual, and it's all about, I think it's all about the balance between emotion and mind. It's about striking a balance between those two things. Introspection, meditation, reflection, that enables us to strike our own individual balance between those two, which shows us that actually our society is way out of balance.
Yeah,
with those things, way out of balance.
You say that, so the balance of the mind and the emotion is built upon strong physical foundations as well. Would you say that's
you would
vital?
have to. Yes, absolutely. You're quite right to raise that. You'd have to put it on strong physical foundations. And in fact, if you don't have strong physical foundations, i.e., if your health is not fundamentally okay, then actually anything you try to do in this field, you'll be struggling with, because you'll be one step forward, one step back. Yeah. And I've been there, so I'm not speaking ivory tower. I've been there. It's not, if your health is shaky, it is difficult to do what we're talking about. So we're not. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete, but you've got to attain some degree of physical resilience and strength.
Yeah, indeed, and that can include financial stability.
It includes financial stability. It is physical stability in your body. It is financial stability. It is some structure in your life. It doesn't have to be wealth. It maybe doesn't even have to be as big as you think it does, but it's got to be something.
Yeah. And then the work to be able to balance the mind and emotions becomes more accessible.
Yes, it does. Well, it means you go one step forward and then another step forward, rather than one step forward, one step back.
Right, gotcha.
There's a lot to unpick it in that. How do we do it? So maybe we'll talk about that another time.
I think that is certainly a topic for another conversation. Okay, so just to close this chat out, then, could you've recently released a new book, which is particularly about how we become these resilient individuals, I take it to be, and lots of other things.
Thank you. Yes, Soul Strong, I called it. It is exactly about that. It is about getting to a situation in our lives where, even if everything around us seems completely insane, and 3 times 2 no longer equals 6 in our world, that we in ourselves, individually first of all, have something that we can lean on and stand on and call upon and depend upon. And it is possible.
Yeah.
And it requires a bit of mental discipline, a bit of emotional balance, a bit of physical strength, but it's really a spiritual matter.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. And that can be a difficult thing for people to get their head around these days, the word spiritual and soul and God. And
it is. But you see, one of the interesting things that comes out of all of the craziness that is happening, I see people more and more than ever before talking about these words, God and soul, because, and this is a prediction that I always thought would be true. Societies abandon ideas of God and the soul when they think they don't need them, and when they realize that they do need them, they're straight back into them. And I think that's where we are. So I will do one prediction. God will make a comeback. It is making a comeback, and it will make a comeback. There's no doubt about it. That doesn't mean church. It means God, something bigger than us.
Personal relationship with a deity.
Personal relationship with the cosmos, personal relationship with a divine source that is bigger than us, that is not us. That's the crucial point. It's not what we feel. It's not what we think. It's bigger than that.
Yeah. Not another collective in the form of a church, like you said.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Not another collective in terms of gathering all my like-minded friends together. It's not that.
No.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, and that's another conversation again. So we'll get that scheduled in. Well, Richard, as always, really enlightening and helpful. Thank you very much for your time.
Nice to see you. Take care.
Yes, speak to you later.